Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Groundless Ground online Satsang. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. It's my absolute pleasure to meet with you in this way. Like always, I have a bunch of emails which I will be answering a little bit later in the program. But the first thing I wanted to start off with is, I guess, just a couple announcements, letting everyone know that this satsang is supported by donations. So I thank you all for the donations that you've offered, and you're welcome to go to craigholliday.com after the satsang, and there's a PayPal link there, and you can offer something. Also, I want to thank all the Satori Sangha students who are joining this evening. Got a lot of emails from students, so I appreciate those, and thank you for being a part of this school and for also supporting the work that I do. Also, I will be in San Rafael, California on March 22nd, giving satsang. So at the Unity of Marin Church. So please join me there. And also the next online satsang will be March 31st. So in a couple weeks. So anyways, got a really busy month this month. I thought we might just take a moment and just give ourselves permission to fully settle in. Just to let go of the day, the week. Or any thoughts you may be having. You're welcome just to gently let those go. Just give yourself permission to fully be here. And so I wanted to offer this week's exercise. And for the Satori School, I haven't actually posted it online yet, but one of the things that I noticed is that so many of us are busy rushing. Rushing here, rushing there. I have a very intense schedule. I have a new baby and travel. Meet so many clients from all over the world. And so I'm going to invite you just to join me in just completely stopping. Giving yourself permission just to stop totally. Stay right here in this moment. Can you just fully give yourself permission? Just to slow down and just stop. Just to be here. And just notice what it's like. Simply to be awake, to be aware, and to fully stop. So by stopping, I mean unhooking from the mind, unhooking from that habitual dance of inertia, that habitual dance of ego. And just noticing, what is it like when we are fully present with ourselves? And what is your beingness like? What is your radiance like? What is your heart like? I met someone earlier today. He was in so much pain and so much suffering. So he had a big decision to make, and all this intense emotion wrapped up around it. He had arguments, in his mind of which way to go, and then also opposing arguments of which way to go. And so, it was a very, very painful experience for him. He told me that he hasn't slept in, a number of days. He hasn't slept at all. I just invited him just to stop, and to come fully here, and to give himself permission to descend out of his mind. That tends to be where our ego has its seat. It's like its seat of power, its seat of authority. So I invited him just to drop fully down into his heart. And he said, Craig, I can't hear my heart. I said, yeah, it's difficult to hear our heart if we're busy being lost in our mind. Very difficult to hear the heart. Very difficult to live from our heart. If we habitually just listen to our mind, if we give it all of our time and attention. And so when we meet in this way, this is an invitation just to drop out of the mind and into the heart. And we can just to directly experience life. We can directly experience what we are. Beyond that dance of emotion, that dance of argument and ego, which we are so familiar with. And the other dances that most of us are familiar with is just this continual rush to get to the next thing, to get to the next place, always chasing after this or that. The ego, it lives in the future and it lives in the past, fearing the past and chasing after something in the future. And so the practice this week is, can we just stop and just come into our being, come into our presence, no matter what we are doing. Whether we're driving fast to work, and chasing after this thing or that thing, whether we're speaking with our husband or wife, whether we're right in the middle of an argument, wherever we're at, can we just simply stop and give ourselves permission to wake up to this radiance, to this beauty which we are. Last night I was trying to sleep, and I'm an extremely light sleeper. I'm very sensitive, and so at nighttime my wife laughs at me because I put a hood over my head along with a winter hat, and I stick it, earplugs in. And so we have this little baby that crawls around the bed with us. And she wasn't ready to go to bed last night. I mean, most nights it takes her about a half hour. I was very tired because I've been working so much. And my mind was busy. And my daughter, what she does is she just, she crawls around the bed, and I try to turn over and close my eyes, and she just, grabs onto my hat and just rips on it and slaps me in the face. My mind is saying, oh, won't you go to sleep? It's time for bed. But in reality, this little baby is just slapping me and tugging on my hat. My mind may be complaining, saying this is quite uncomfortable, but inside of my heart, I'm just smiling. And so that's what this invitation is to see life, to experience life from our heart. And that requires that we stop believing what we think. We stop identifying with that movement of mind. We stop chasing after the next thing in the future. Just come into this moment, even if the moment is very uncomfortable, very painful. Again, I've received a lot of questions this week about Kundalini energy and being overwhelmed by anxiety and depression and all sorts of feelings. And if that's the case for you, can you just stop fully? Stop that argument in your mind and just become very intimate with the feeling. Feel the feeling fully. I think I spoke about this last time, is that I went out, I tried to go ice skating, and I ended up falling on the ice, and it hurt my back, pretty severely. It was in a lot of pain. And so for days I was just in pain, and at some point I just sat on the couch, and my mind was complaining about all the pain. I just stopped and became very intimate with it. Said, okay. Just open to the pain. And in that intimacy, in that opening, there was the experience of more pain. But as I opened to it more and more, the pain actually turned to bliss. And so through this exercise of stopping, we're giving ourselves permission not to believe what we think, and to instead to become quite intimate with this moment. And just to discover what's here. Discover what's here. And so say in this moment, becoming intimate with this moment, can you notice the silence here? Just this deep sense of silence. Notice that all of life is arising out of this silence. Can you notice this? Can you experience this silence? Say at the bottom of your feet, the palms of your hands, in your neck and your throat and your shoulders. You notice it in your belly and in your heart. In the space you call your mind. Can you notice that this silence is alive, it's awake, it's vast? And so many of our problems, I'm looking at the stack of emails I have here, but so many of our problems just get totally resolved when we step into this silence. Give ourselves over to it fully. Not as in a way of escaping life, because what I want you to see is that this silence is fully here in the midst of our busy life. After a long day, and being late at night and me wanting to go to sleep, and having a baby that's not ready to go to sleep, she slaps me on the face. She pulls my hair. And all of that is happening in this silence, in this peace. If I identify with my mind, I could get angry at the baby. But it's really hard for me to get angry at my baby. It seems like such a painful way to live, to be angry or distraught. So if you notice yourself angry or distraught or disgruntled or whatever words that that I can think of, but can you just stop? Stop the emotion. Just notice I don't have to believe the story that goes with this emotion. I don't have to believe in the screams of my mind. I can become very present and see life, experience life through the lens of my heart, through the direct experience of my being, the direct experience of my presence. And so I invite you to join me in this. So one of the other things I wanted to speak about is earlier in this week I had a student come and visit with me, and We are sitting down, across from each other. He was asking me about this experience he had. He had this wonderful heart awakening. He was wondering, where did it go? He had since gotten busy with his work and running here and running there. And so as we sat there together, I just said, well, why don't you bring your attention to your experience right now? And I asked him, what do you notice right now? And if you ask your mind, you'll notice a lot of thoughts. If you ask your emotions, they will report how you're feeling. But what I'm inviting us into is something much greater than our mind, something much greater than our emotions. You're welcome to identify with your mind or your emotions, but if you do, you will suffer. You will experience pain. You will experience separation. And so I just invited him. I said, what do you notice here? He said, the room feels so warm. It feels so alive. It feels so awake. I said, okay, can you give yourself to this? Can you give yourself to this which is here in every moment? And so as we sat together, the energy began to build, it began to intensify, it began to get quite divine, quite pristine. I say, even as I'm sitting here this evening, I'm feeling an intensity of light shining down through me. And someone asked me a question about the experience of transmission. I get this question a lot. Is it, Craig, that when I'm in your presence, in the sense the question is like, are you causing the awakening? Is the transmission from you, Craig, causing the awakening? And in a sense, it's yes, and of course, in a sense, it's also no. And we are all absolutely divine. See, the thing is that most of us, we aren't looking at our divinity. We aren't experiencing our divinity. We are looking at our mind and our emotional world to define us. And as a result, that creates our sense of reality, which is often a reality of suffering. And so one of the things that my teacher trained me in doing is to put my full attention on the divine, both the divine above, like the heavenly God, both God the Father and God the Mother, as well as the divine within me. And so for me, I always thought, well, I didn't really think this, but the thought now is, if you put your attention on all three, God the Father, God the Mother, and you as God, you as divine, and that pretty much covers all the bases. If you want to experience light, if you want to experience bliss, if you want to open to incredible heavenly worlds, bliss worlds, divine worlds, so this individual sitting with me who had this heart awakening, his heart began to awaken again and expand, as we were sitting together. And then I just invited him. I simply invited him. Can you notice what else is here? Or can you open to receiving a much greater force? sounds crazy, but a greater force in your own heart awakening. And so anytime I sit down and teach, sit down with an individual, or sometimes I'm just walking down the street, I just gently open, especially if I'm feeling, say, mediocre or mundane within my consciousness. Oftentimes I just open. Sometimes God just comes to me. Oftentimes God comes to me where I don't even have to open. God just floods me with their presence. And so I invite you just to join me in this too. This practice of just opening to something. And it takes someone who can be very sensitive and just notice very subtle energies. In a sense, when we sit down and we meditate together, we are opening to very subtle energies. We always open to, say, the vastness, the spaciousness, the silence. You open to your own heart radiance. But if you want to live in this world that I'm speaking about, you have to be willing to train your mind to focus on your experience and on the experience of subtle energies arising within you and allowing those energies to transform you, to become one with you. And so right now, I'm just noticing, say, a heat that's coming through me like an intensity of light, a purifying light. And so can you notice that as well? Can you notice this light? Can you open to it? And so we don't want to look for this light in the world of our thinking mind or in the world of our emotional mind. Can you feel this light? Say in your third eye. In the space that you call the mind, but again, not like the thinking mind. The light is absolutely there as well, but oftentimes if we put our attention on the thinking mind, we become lost in thought. But can you open to receiving something greater than yourself? And give yourself permission just to receive, to experience this holy grace. Can you give yourself the permission to be overwhelmed with divinity? I assume that's what we all want. I don't think there's anything more amazing than being overwhelmed with divinity. And so if you can notice this energy just descending deeper into you. Again, perhaps maybe you notice, say, a high-pitched om. Or just a very subtle plane, like in the real subtle world of just this high-pitched, hum or sense of divinity. And we're just allowing that to descend deeper. You can relax your throat, your neck, your shoulders. And can you give yourself permission just to open to receiving this energy in a fuller way? And so the only thing you really have to do is to be willing to feel, be willing to experience, in the most direct way. And perhaps you could even notice, say, in the bottom of your feet waking up, being filled with light coming up your shins, your ankles, your thighs, your hamstrings into your pelvis. And of course, if there's any tension anywhere within you, especially the pelvic floor, can you relax that? You relax your shoulders, your jaw, your throat. You relax your belly. And just allow these energies to move through you. Noticing such a bright light, and it's also just a wonderful, blissful light. And can we all just open to this together? You know, it's quite amazing. What we can experience. It's overwhelmingly amazing. We just set the intention of opening to the divine. And we actively choose to unhook from our mentality and our emotionality. Just step into this greater world. I'm always amazed at the light and the brilliance that comes. And to those who are humble enough and to unhook, and to unhook from the inertia of the collective consciousness, you begin to relate to God in a deep way. And that's all we're doing is we are relating to our true self, our divine self. We are relating, to God in this moment. Just with almost like a gentle prayer of God, will you flood me with your bliss? Will you flood me with your divinity? Will you flood me with your overwhelming joy and bliss and wonder and mystery? And so as we step into this, we are stepping into the space of the groundless ground. And so if you notice in your experience right now, it may feel as if the ground is not present. Almost like you're suspended in space. Suspended in, almost like in a heaven world here on earth. If you can just notice that the whole world is vibrating. That the world is not really as solid as our minds say they are, think they are, assume they are. If you notice your hands, your body, your presence, it feels fluid and vibrating with joy and divinity. And so can you give yourself over to this groundless ground? Can you let go fully into it? Can you smile and just notice how big you are, how vast you are, how wonderful you are? And can you notice, say, with your subtle perception, can you come into the space where you have the sense of hearing? And just notice what you hear beyond my voice, beyond the sounds which are arising. Can you notice this divine sound here this evening? This high-pitched hum, this high-pitched om. It's almost like a brilliant and purifying light. Like hearing the sound of radiance. Can you hear your radiance? Can you feel your radiance? Can you experience your radiance? Can you experience God's radiance arising in you as you? It's quite incredible what comes if we're willing to be open, if we're willing to receive, if we're willing to be humble. By that I mean to experience something much greater than ourselves. I always feel so humbled, so honored that God comes to these meetings and is willing to flood us with grace, to flood us with bliss, to flood anyone who's willing to be open. How wonderful it is. How fortunate we are. And so I invite you just to stay with your experience. I'm going to shift gears and continue to answer some questions. But I want you to know that I'm going to continue to be flooded with grace. So I invite you to continue to be flooded with grace. And so I encourage you just to continue to listen. To continue to experience from your heart. To continue to experience from this greater sense of self. And so oftentimes we go to spiritual meetings looking to get something or to gain something. From a perspective of our mind, and I invite you just simply to open and to continue to receive. And so again, with the question of transmission, oftentimes with a teacher is they've given themselves over to God. And so then they just act like a conduit of grace. But in reality, God is just waiting for us all to open. Just silently waiting for us to open our hearts to her grace. So is a teacher necessary? Absolutely not. The question is are you willing to open to God throughout your day, throughout your life, in every moment? By God, I mean your true self, something greater than egoic suffering. And so one of the students wrote in, is it, must I rely on you, Craig? Of course not. What I want for everyone is for them to have their own relationship with God, with grace, with their true nature, until there is no separation between the two. To see that the two are not two, but the two are absolutely one. And so I think I was telling the story of my friend and I were just sitting in my office. And he came in with a list of questions. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I just simply invited him to open. And to open more. And to open more. And to open more. And together we were just flooded with grace. Flooded with his transmission of divinity. It was such a beautiful experience for him. It was also a beautiful experience for me. So I love it when individuals are so open. And sometimes the grace, it comes with an intensity, and people say, oh, this is too much. I can't take any more of this grace. We need to, they want to leave the room or leave the meeting. But if you fully step out of the way, you'll see that you are not separate from the grace. That it's not separate from you. It's not something outside of you. It is you. It is your nature. And so then the question is do we, do we want to be overwhelmed? But do we want to be overwhelmed by our own goodness, our own wonder, our own beauty, our own divinity? Or do we want to run scared? And most people choose to run scared, which is amazing to me, that we would run scared from grace, from our own divinity. It's amazing to me. And so oftentimes when we open in this way, we're opening to these worlds beyond mind. And in a sense, if you want to live in an awakened way, you must be willing to open into worlds which no words can describe. Sometimes I go and I visit this Buddhist retreat center, and they have all these, say, Buddhist statues, all these different manifestations of God. And each of the Buddhas comes from, say, a different heaven world, and they have all these long explanations of the heaven world. And then oftentimes there's some little sentence at the end, saying that this world is indescribable, ineffable. You can't understand it. There's no words for it. But we try with our mind. But in a sense, to step into the awakened space, you're stepping into a world beyond mind, beyond thought, beyond explanation, into this groundless space. So the invitation is can you become comfortable in the groundless space? Can you become comfortable in living in a world without thought, without words, without explanation, without having to control? Everything the ego does, it creates a trance state of control, a trance state of thinking it knows, of making things solid. And as you wake up, you realize that nothing is solid, nothing is permanent. Everything is fluid and moving. Everything is ineffable. And so if we want to be awake, we have to become comfortable with ineffable. And one day I was working, and this beautiful woman, walked into my building. I looked into her eyes, and time just stopped. Later I sat down with her and was speaking to her, and she had this tattoo, this little tattoo, just in a really weird space on her wrist area here. It said ineffable. And I just laughed out loud. Because that's what we all are, ineffable. Our mind does its best to create an identity, to create a story, to create this is me, I like this, I'm annoyed by that, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Green Party person, I'm a socialist, I'm a son, daughter, mother, father. But when I first saw this individual, I just saw this brilliance of light. Just such a sparkle in her eyes. So of course, later on she became my wife, but that's a whole other story. The thing is that she's not my wife. She still is ineffable. Our mind will try to put each other in a box. I know this person. She does this, she does that, I can expect this. She has this role, I have that role. But that's what our mind does. If you step into the world of being awake, we're stepping into the world of everything being ineffable, indescribable. As soon as you judge it, again, you come back into the trance state. As soon as you believe any judgment in your mind, you come into the trance state. And so for us to live free, for us to live in the space of moksha, liberation, freedom, awakening, whatever you want to call it, we have to let go of our judgments, about life. So I keep glancing at these questions that people send in, but someone sent me, I got a lot of really long emails, and so I'm just going to do my best to condense them. So someone wrote in saying, I have been beaten and abused by life. I kind of rewrote the email. I have no real family and do not want to be in this world. Of course I want to live in moksha, free from this world. And then they went on and said something about me living in this world, but basically the question is how do I live in this world? That's a great question. And so in a sense my heart goes out to you. It's the email gave a pretty painful story of being beaten up by life. And most of us can identify with this. We've suffered a great deal, mentally, emotionally, physically. And we tend to get excuse my language, but we tend to get our ass kicked. As soon as we incarnate into this world. I mean, simply the process of birth is a traumatic experience, for most of us. We have brothers or sisters that, beat us up, throw us under the bus. Friends and family who abuse us. And so, there's this natural tendency to want to escape this world because there's this thought of, if I get out of this world, then I won't experience pain anymore. In a sense, a lot of the Buddhist teachings are about that. It's about getting off the wheel of samsara, not incarnating into this world again. And so the problem is if we're going to live in this world, and that teaching is only going to take us so far. That teaching is great if we live in a convent or a monastery, but still even there, I meet so many people who live in the convent, live in the monastery, live at the retreat center, and they still live in intense suffering. And so how do I live in this world? You do so with love, with compassion. Can you meet your pain, your suffering, with love and compassion? Can you meet the place within you which has been beaten down by life, which has been broken, which has gotten your ass kicked? Can you meet that place with love, with truth, with peace? And so what does that look like practically? If pain arises, you breathe fully into the pain. You relax into the pain. So that's the stepping into the peace. You relax into pain. You notice that there's peace here, there's space here. That there's peace all around you. You notice that the experience that once happened is not happening now. Pain may still be arising, but the initial abuse, it's over. And so can you stop and just come to the present moment and see, I am safe, I am okay. In the most basic sense, the most Zen-like sense, get your feet on the ground, lay down in bed, put a hand on your heart, a hand on your belly. Can you breathe into the pain? Can you experience the pain? And can you allow the pain to leave you? So pain leaves us through you breathing into it fully and being willing to courageously experience it. I feel the sadness of this past pain. I feel the sadness of the abuse. I feel the anger of the abuse. I feel all these energies within me. I breathe into them. I feel them. I honor them. And I meet them with this sense of love. I also meet them with this sense of truth. The truth is the experience is over, and I am here, and I am safe now. Of course, if you're not safe now, as if the experience is actually happening, then truth is you leave the situation. You take care of yourself. You honor yourself. Become gentle with yourself. See, most of us, because we have pain in our body, we think that through spirituality we will become free of our body. We'll just ascend to heaven and we will no longer experience bodily pain. But I will tell you this, bodily pain, the pain in your cellular memory, will be with you until you liberate it. You may transcend it for a short period of time, but that pain will be with you your entire life until you liberate it. You cannot outrun your pain. If you want to be free, you must meet that pain fully. You must pull it close to you. You must be willing to feel it, embrace it, love it to death. And again, the most basic way, it means you breathe into it, you feel it, and you let it go. You know, just like if you're going to go get some body work or massage, you breathe into the pain, you breathe into the muscle tension, and you let it go. The same is true with anger, sadness, guilt, rage. You know, doubt, shame, whatever it is you suffer with, can you fully breathe into it and feel the pain, feel the experience, and then let it go? You may have to do this for a minute, you may have to do it for an hour, you may have to do it 10,000 times, as long as it takes. Through the act of courageously embracing pain, through the act of courageously honoring pain, through the act of courageously meeting pain, you become free of it. It naturally releases. You're left with peace, openness, joy, and also you become stronger, more compassionate, more trusting in your own innate goodness, your own innate strength, your own innate indestructibility. So thank you for that question. It's a beautiful question. I get it every day, multiple times. Okay, here's a question from Heather. I sure was touched and felt something during our last session. If you remember, it was around recognizing myself as the guru God and that I was always completely safe. I experienced it both on an intellectual level and in my heart. It was very blissful. Thank you. It lasted for an hour or two, maybe the rest of the day. By the next day, just the intellectual understanding is left. Even though I know it to be my true nature, I don't feel that frictionless love. And so as I go back to my meditation, I feel like I'm grasping at the experience, which keeps it away. And so, yeah, that's true. So if you grasp at an experience, it keeps it away. And so, you know, the email goes on, but, you know, basically, if you can just bring your attention to your heart, and can you notice just a gentle radiance in your heart, a gentle goodness in your heart, a gentle innocence in your heart. Can you give yourself to that? Isn't that always here? A gentle innocence, a gentle radiance. Can you open to that? Experience that? Can you be that? And can you plant your feet there? And she was one of the ones that asked me about the transmission. Is it a matter of some kind of transmission from you? No, that's your heart. That is you. Like you said in your email, you experienced the inner guru, the inner God, the inner divine. We all have this within us. It doesn't belong to me. I may just point you in the direction of it. In the most basic sense, can you open to that childlike innocence? Can you open to that beauty which you are? And if you find yourself lost again in your mind, or that the experience has faded, what it means is that you put your attention somewhere else. And so I invite you not to grasp at this experience, but to plant your feet in your heart. And so the most basic way means, can you feel your heart? Can you experience your heart? What does your heart feel like? Oh, my heart feels wonderful. It feels beautiful. It feels divine. And again, I know I say this every week, but I'm not asking you to plant your feet in your emotional heart, because our emotional heart is where we store our pain, our irritation, our heartache. People oftentimes get confused when I say the heart. Can you plant your feet in that inner radiance? That sense of aliveness which is looking out of your eyes right now. Can you notice that that aliveness is absolutely perfect, absolutely divine, absolutely beautiful? Can you be that? It sounds silly to say, can you be it? Because it is what you are. It's the most fundamental thing that we are, is this aliveness. So to be awake is to step into this, and to simply be this. It's a beautiful question. It's a great question from Pete. After many years of meditating, I've become habituated to the practice of just returning to the breath. Formerly the TM mantra. Whenever I realize my attention is on a thought or sensation. So the exercise of observing the manifestation of a thought, including its arising and fading. This is the exercise from the Satori school, I think this last week. The exercise of observing the manifestation of a thought, including its arising and fading, is difficult to do. There's a tendency for the witness to wrench away, shut down the thought or image, whatever I notice that I've shifted away from presence. I don't give the thought, sensation, emotion a chance to express itself fully. Kind of a dilemma if the aim is to investigate the essence of a thought. Okay, so the email goes on and on, but in short, there's all different kinds of meditation practices. One of the practices that most people start with is a practice where we're focusing on a mantra, we're using a sense of willpower to stay focused on a certain thing, an object of our attention. And that's great. It's a great way to focus our mind. If you just focus on a mantra, I am love, I am love, I am love, or Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Namo Bhagavate, Om Namo Bhagavate. Say it over and over again. Chances are within a couple minutes, you'll begin to feel differently. You'll get to experience peace, openness, a sense of light or love. And that's a beautiful thing. And oftentimes I teach meditation that way, to focus on one thing. But if we want to be free, we have to be willing to allow everything to arise, to allow everything to be here fully and completely, including thoughts. And people think that thoughts are outside of God, that they're outside of the divine. And so I encourage you, if you've been meditating a certain way where you're kind of creating this division between you and your thinking mind, between you and thoughts, to let go of that division, to simply allow thoughts to come and allow them to go. Just like we allow the sky to be here, we allow the ocean to be here, we allow all objects to be here. Imagine if your thoughts were just like the objects in this room or in the room that you're in. You don't have a problem with the objects. You don't have a problem with the pictures on your walls. You don't have a problem with the carpet on the floor, the ceiling above. And so can you allow your relationship with thought to be the same way? If you're sitting in meditation, can you fully allow thoughts to come? Allow them to go. If you're walking down the street, can you simply allow thoughts to come and allow them to go? Can you allow judgment to come and allow judgment to go? The funny thing is if you fully allow everything to arise, your mind becomes quite silent. Thought really relaxes. Judgments tend not to come. So can you just step back and allow everything to be as it is? Even thought. And I would also encourage you to let go of the meditator. It's good to have a discipline in the beginning when we're developing a meditation practice. A part of meditation is sitting there and doing nothing, being nothing, allowing everything. If we're busy fighting our thoughts, we're creating a separation, we're creating a sense of violence. We're closing out life. And so I think I was emailing back and forth with Pete, and at one point I asked him, can you investigate thought and see what thought is? You know, there's so many people that have such a war against thought. If you look at a thought, I'll say this differently, if you experience your thought on the level of essence, what you'll find is that, maybe we can do it together. You allow a thought to come forward. If you feel the thought, if you experience the thought, is that thought, also like a spark of light, an aspect of life, like a divine mystery arising within you? I mean, isn't that amazing? Isn't that beautiful? Even the thought, like something silly, I don't like this. If you really feel into it, on a surface level, you'll feel some tension in it, a little bit of anxiety. But if you feel deeper into that very thought, to that judgment, you'll notice that thought too is made up of bliss. That thought too is made up of spaciousness. It's made up of impermanence. It's vibrating energy. And isn't that beautiful? All of this vibrating energy, this mysterious force, this mysterious intelligence, even if it's the intelligence of the collective unconsciousness. Wow, look at this thought. I hate this person. Look at that thought. Experience it fully. Wow. And again, I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm not asking you to get carried away with it. But if you experience it on the level of, like in the most innocent way, experience thought. So it too is divine. It's made up of the same substance that you are, that God is. I mean, where do you think thoughts come from? You just sit there and they come. They come. It's just some level of God, whether it's a level of the collective unconsciousness or, divine transmission. I mean, it's all divine, but, whether thoughts coming from a, a heaven world or the collective consciousness, it's all God in the end. So can you experience thought without getting involved with it, without getting carried away by it, without believing it? And so if you're going to live in truth, you see a thought, you let it go, or you just see a thought and it naturally goes. You don't actually have to let anything go. Everything comes and goes on its own accord. And so the invitation is, can you not fight thought? And can you have a different relationship with your mind? Like, wow, isn't it amazing that I can think? Isn't it amazing that thoughts just appear in my consciousness? Wow, isn't it amazing? When you fall in love with your mind, when you give it full permission to be here, well, you discover that your mind is God. It may show up in one level of consciousness, but the more you give it permission to be here, the more you love it, the more it upgrades, the quicker it upgrades into something greater than, say, the normal collective, karmic inertia. So that's a beautiful, beautiful question. Thanks, Pete. Okay, and so in this last little bit, again, I'm going to answer some questions on Kundalini. I get so many questions on Kundalini. So this individual says, I'm not very functional at the moment. I'm unable to do all kinds of things. It's a very long email, but I definitely now feel like the Kundalini energy is inside of me, but it's not an energy I can do anything with. Yeah, that's true. You can't do anything with Kundalini energy. The point is not for you to do anything with it. The point is for it to live through you as you. And so one of the things that Kundalini energy does, it comes with such a power, such a force, is it breaks down your mind. It breaks down your will. The ego is a false sense of control. So when you have a raging force of energy, a raging force of grace going through your body, and he goes on, he says he has all kinds of symptoms. A vibration in my root chakra, like I'm sitting on a dryer, intermittent pain at the center of my forehead, intermittent pain in the center of my chest. It's like water rushing up my spine, exhaustion, hypersensitivity. Yeah, so this energy, and unfortunately when Kundalini comes, it can come in almost a violent way. From the perspective of the mind, from the perspective of our nervous system, it's absolutely violent. From the perspective of God, it's absolutely beautiful, absolutely divine, absolutely perfect. And so the invitation is can you see your experience? I got a bunch of other emails too, especially about Kundalini and fear, Kundalini and anxiety, Kundalini being overwhelmed. But the basic thing is, can you surrender fully to this movement of grace within you and allow this grace to move through you as you? Can you surrender to this movement of grace in you as you? And let God fully have her way with you until you realize that you are this energy. This energy is not happening to you. Can you open into this energy and see that you are it? Is it painful? Yes. If you resist it, it's painful. The normal egoic habit is if something is painful, we run from it. You cannot outrun pain. You cannot outrun transformation. You cannot outrun evolution. This is an evolutionary force. So I invite you to join with the energy, join with the light, become deeply intimate with it. Again, I know this pain. I still have trouble sleeping. I barely slept this week. There's times when my nervous system feels absolutely exhausted. From one perspective, I could say I'm absolutely exhausted right now. But because I've given myself over to this energy just moves through me as me. If I fight the energy, I will be absolutely exhausted. If I'm afraid of the energy and say, this is something outside of me, what is it doing? What's happening to me? I will be exhausted. It will be frightening. It will be fearful. But if I open into this energy, see, what is this energy? If I just become quite curious with it, what is this energy actually? My mind may tell me this is pain, but as I open to the pain more fully, I was laying in bed last night in the middle of the night, just laying there, just radiating. It felt like irritation and pain. I said, okay, I'm going to open to this. Oh, this is another form of bliss. It's another form of light. And this is me. And so I lay there for hours in this overwhelming energy. Did my mind complain? Sure. Did I listen to it? Not so much. Our minds complain when they're stretched. And as long as we're in form, as long as we live in this world, we're going to be continually being stretched. Now, unfortunately, for those of you going through a Kundalini awakening, it's a lot of energy all at once. If you can see that this energy is not outside of you, but is you, then it's not like some violent force that's doing something to you. It's like, oh my God, there is so much energy in me. Wow. I have this pain in my third eye. If you open to it, again, like you're giving birth to something new, if you open to it as you surrender to it fully, oh, wow, look at what this is. How incredible this is. It's a whole nother world being birthed through me in my third eye. As you open to, say, that vibration in your root chakra, and just allow it to explode outward in every direction. Oh wow, this is tremendous love. This is tremendous evolutionary energy. Will it rub against your nervous system and be painful? Possibly. At some point, that pain will end as the channel fully opens. Growth is not a painless process. Growth tends to be violent. If you look at the growth of our world, the growth of humanity, it's been a violent growth. The growth of, say, the solar system, the universe, it's been a violent growth. But see, to God, violence isn't always bad. Violence is like explosive energy. We may say violence and say, oh, it's terrible, it's bad, because we have a judgmental mind. But if we look at our mind, if we look at our experience in a different way and say, what is this? What is actually taking place here? Evolution is waking up in me as me. It's channeling, a new tunnel through me. It's changing, it's transforming my very nature. Can I open to that? Even if it's painful. Again, it's like birth. We are pregnant with something. and that something is being birthed through us as us. Is it painful? Yes. Is it debilitating? It can be. And so the other thing you can do is be gentle with yourself. Take care of yourself. If you're experiencing fear and anxiety, meet the fear and anxiety with love. Breathe into it, experience it, love it. And notice just in the most truthful way. By truthful, I mean in the your feet on the ground, Zen-like reality. Is there anything that's actually happening to me? A lot of energy moving through my body. If fear is arising, is anything actually happening? No, I'm actually completely safe right here in my room, in my bed, laying on my floor, hand on my heart, hand on my belly. I am completely safe. My body's having a panic attack, but can I breathe into the panic and realize I am completely safe? Like right here, like I'm safe, I'm okay. I am okay. And breathe into the panic, let it go. And just like, like if my child is crying, if my baby's crying, I breathe into her, hold her. Sweetie, it's okay, it's okay. If her mom leaves the room, she starts screaming and goes into terror. And so I pick her up and I hold her. Sweetie, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Her mind has a story that something is happening. Oh no, mother is leaving me. I pick her up. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. So you do the same thing with your pain. You breathe into it, you feel it. And you realize, I am okay. It's just energy, it's just an experience. I was telling someone a really funny story that, a while ago. I've actually had this happen a couple of times. I used to be a carpenter and I was working with some metal and building something. And a piece of metal got flicked into my eye, from the drill or something. And it was the most god-awful pain, to have a piece of metal stuck in my eye. Every time I blinked, it just, it hurt like hell. And so, I had to stop what I was doing and go to the eye doctor. And went to the eye doctor and I sat down and she said, and it's tremendous pain. She looked in my eye. She said, oh yes, there's a little piece of metal stuck in your eye. She said, I'm going to have to get it out. And so, she said, well, let me numb it first. I think she squirted something in my eye that was going to numb it. But then I had to sit there and not move while she stuck a needle into my eyeball. Which is one of the most crazy experiences because you just see it going right into your eye. I hope this is not too graphic of a story, but you get the point. You can't move in a situation like this. And if you move, she won't be able to get it out. So she stuck the needle in my eye, like I was trying to dig this thing out of my eye. So I just had to sit there and experience it. Tremendous pain, tremendous fear there. And this is, real fear, like this is actually happening. So you just breathe. You watch the needle go in and you watch her try to get it out. She was unsuccessful. She said, oh, I got to get this little mini drill and drill into your eye. And this is the part of your eye that you actually see out of. So she took this mini drill and stuck it in my eye and took something out. Sounds so silly when I'm talking about it now. And it's like, yes, you can't move. You can't move. And so sometimes life is like that. You have to breathe into the pain. You have to experience the pain. But what I notice is that this is incredibly painful. And I am absolutely and completely okay. I am totally okay. I am absolutely here. I'm completely fine. And so she got it out and then, she sent me home with tremendous pain. I couldn't do anything the rest of the day. And the next day I was in even more pain. And then the next day I was in more pain. I called her up and I said, hey, I'm in a lot of pain. She said, oh no, you should have been out of pain the following day. She said, come back in. I went back in. She said, oh, there's more. And we had to do the whole thing over again. And so sometimes life gives us these experiences, whether it's Kundalini, childbirth, whatever it is. The invitation is can we meet our experience fully with love, fully and completely? Can we breathe into the pain? Can we breathe into our anxiety? Can we breathe into the fear and just be fully awake? Awake to the fact that I am actually okay. I'm actually completely okay. Despite what my mind is saying, despite what the emotions are saying, can I breathe into them? Can I meet them with love? And as you do so, you begin to create this confidence in your divinity, this confidence in your goodness, this confidence in your indestructibility. And so again, back to the Kundalini questions. When you give yourself over to that energy, when you give yourself over to this grace, when you give yourself over to it, see that it's not outside of you, it's not separate from you. You realize that you are one with the divine, that you are one with life, that you are one with the evolutionary impulse of this world. But see, it takes someone who's quite brave, quite courageous. The tendency is to run from pain. But if Kundalini is awakening within you, you don't really have that choice. I mean, you're welcome to try to run. But in the end, it will have its way with you. So the same is true with any of our experiences. If we have pain within us, we can try to run. But in the end, truth will win out. Because this is a world of growth, a world of continual evolution. And evolution always wins. And so are you going to get on board with the Divine Mother, with this divine movement, with your higher nature? If you do so, you will experience bliss, happiness, joy. If you fight it, you'll suffer, you'll feel separation, you'll feel pain. And so anyways, this is my invitation to you. Can you open again and again to that which is greater? Can you give yourself over fully to your light? To God's love in you as you. And so this is my prayer to you. This is my prayer to myself, my prayer to all. It's been such an honor sitting with you all this evening. Thank you all for joining me from all over the world. Again, if you feel inspired, please offer a donation, at CraigHolliday.com. And also I want to thank all the Satori students who are joining tonight and supporting this program. We'll be back on the 31st. And if any of you are joining from Northern California, maybe I'll see you on the 22nd. There's details on my website about that. I think it's 5 p.m. Unity of Marin Church in San Rafael. Look forward to seeing you there. It might be 5:30, but check the website and you'll find info there. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you. Take good care.